Andy, welcome to Mint, man. Thank you so much for being on. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Sorry,
You
it's
got it,
been way
dude.
too long since we started having these conversations.
I think we met 6 months ago at ETHCC in Paris, and I was like, "Yo, fractional sick. Come on, Mint." You're like, "Yeah, we'll figure something out." And it like 6, 7 months later, here we are. All in good timing, though. All in good timing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, dude. Let's get started. Who the hell are you? Okay. What should people know about you? But more specifically, what were you like before crypto?
All right. Honestly, I was basically the same,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay.
But I don't know. You can ask Allie. She'd be more insightful to it than me. Um, so prior to crypto stuff, I mean, I've spent like basically all of my adult life doing crypto stuff. So also like basically prior to crypto stuff, I was in college. But I went to Villanova and studied computer engineering. For a while I thought I actually wanted to get into like sports analytics stuff. I like spent the summer after college like DMing every general manager in the NBA on LinkedIn, or like anyone who worked in data analytics
Jesus.
in the NBA, trying to see if I could get something there. Fortunately that didn't work out, so that's good. It all worked out for the best. I had like a really boring job, doing back end stuff, and then just kind of found my way to be at like a fintech company writing Solidity in 2017. Did that, went to Maker in the start of 2019. Like I started like January 1st, 2019. Worked there for 2 years, left to do like some consulting stuff and other random stuff, and then started Fractional in February of this year. Um, Outside of crypto stuff in general, I've always been pretty into like sports and video games are like my big things that I do for fun in my free
Hmm.
time. Um, I'm a really, really big basketball and football fan. I used to play a lot of daily fantasy sports and like do my own like player projection models and all of that kind of stuff. I don't really do that anymore. I play some underdog because it's like super, super casual, which is nice. But no more like crunching lineups for 4 hours before tip off and all of that. Uh, but those were the good old days.
Yeah. Did you play basketball and football growing up?
I would play with my friends. I played football in high school.
What'd you play?
I was I
What
was
was
not
your
very good.
position? No.
I
Okay.
was a tight end and defensive end. I was better on offense than I was on defense. I was a pretty good blocker. I was not a route running tight end.
Got it. Dude, growing up, I also like I hated sports. I was a fat ass growing up. I kind of still am, but like if you're a fat ass, you typically lean towards football, right? Like
Mhm.
you're good shield, you're good brick wall, kind of like in the front. So I was very much a lineman. I forgot. I think I was like I'm gonna butcher, dude. I don't even remember anymore. That's how like unintuned I was. But I remember in middle school, I played football with like the local Angels League, and then when I got into like high school, I joined like the high school team. It was still like fucking nobody on there, and was dirt shit. But it gave me the appreciation of what sports was. Like my brother's a basketball player. He's like 6 foot something, 6'1", and he was always a sports person. I was always the music person. I'm like pointing right
Mhm.
behind me, but yeah, okay. So you were a lineman basically, right? You were in the front.
Yeah.
Okay, and then basketball you played growing up as well.
Yeah, not like on teams really. I stopped
Okay,
doing that. So I hit my growth spurt pretty late. I'm like 6 feet tall, but I
okay,
was it's like freshman I was like 5'1", and so
okay, shit.
like eighth grade I was like, you know what, basketball not for me. Um, and then I grew a lot, so like sophomore year of high school, and so I just played like casually with my friends. We used
Got it.
to, especially like sophomore and junior year, I think maybe senior year as well. We would just like go to our local rec center and play most days after school. We would like go play basketball, go back to a friend's house, play Halo or Call of Duty, go home for dinner. That was like our
That's it.
normal after school
That's it.
evening. Yeah.
So, okay, into playing video games. I feel like that's a very underlying common theme amongst many people in crypto, myself included. I got started playing like Club Penguin and RuneScape. Like that was my thing. What did you play other than Halo? What was it?
Yeah, well, so I started out playing on console, doing like Call of Duty was the one that I was
Yeah.
best at. I would go to a lot of like the local tournaments and stuff growing up. I'd also play Madden. Um, then I moved over to I started playing PC games uh, later on in high school,
Hmm.
and I was playing StarCraft. I was terrible, and I was playing League of Legends like very early on. I was also terrible. I've never been good at League of Legends. I still play it for fun sometimes. I've never been better than like gold 2 in League of Legends, even though I have so many hours in that goddamn game. But the games that I generally have done better at have been the more strategy style games.
Uh-huh.
Back in college, I was playing Hearthstone pretty competitively.
Okay.
And then more recently, kind of like right at the start of COVID and a little earlier than that, I was playing this game called Teamfight Tactics very competitively. Like I was legitimately considering trying to like become a Twitch streamer and go pro in this game.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. But another one of those moments where like fortunately it didn't work out and I decided to do something else. But now I just play it for fun. It's like a nice game to take 45 minutes and chill and do something else, turn my brain off.
All right. I love it. The only person that comes to mind, I guess, character wise, that I always admired was like Zazima in RuneScape. Do you remember Zazima?
Yeah,
Okay.
man, it's been a long time since I
It's
played RuneScape.
it's been a minute, but for whatever reason, that name always stuck out with me. I remember I was playing RuneScape and my account got hacked and I lost all my shit. And I became depressed as like a middle schooler. And I didn't want to talk to anyone. My parents couldn't talk to me, whatever. Okay. Video gaming, sports, college, got into crypto during college, studied computer
I actually did
science.
not get into crypto in college.
Oh,
I
okay. Post
I
college
got
then.
into crypto 1 year outside of school. So I started.
Oh,
I guess
okay.
I got into crypto like end of 2016,
Okay.
start of 2017,
Okay.
and then I started doing it full time end of 2017.
Got it. Got it. What do you think are like the biggest similarities between video games that you grew up playing to crypto in general? Like, why do you think there's such like an underlying theme between amongst a lot of people in the games that they played back in the day?
Yeah, well, I think like I'm a really large proponent of video games in general. I think that they really help with like critical thinking, problem solving, a lot of this stuff. When you're actually like, if you're actually playing games that are competitive or you're trying or playing games that are challenging,
Sure.
obviously you can play Candy Crush all day and like it's not going to do anything for you. But like I legitimately think a lot of the way that I think about like challenges and stuff have been helped a lot by video games. Whether or not that's true, who the hell knows? But I believe it. I think that a lot of the people who are big in crypto or just like really into crypto probably grew up online a lot. Like I definitely did, and also they're very good at like problem solving, and they also enjoy the like PvP nature of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
I think crypto is extremely like overall like a rising tide lifts all ships thing, but there is a lot of PvP that happens in the meantime. Um, I think that people who are really into video games and good at video games are good at that and probably also really enjoy it. Like I just even outside of the making money part, I thoroughly enjoy doing like degenerate yield farm stuff, trying to figure out when you should pull out of pool 2 and all those types of things. Like to me, it's fun. And like I even without the money side, it's just like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely a pretty big connection there where people just like they enjoy doing stuff online with other people, and crypto is like the ultimate online arena for all of that stuff.
Crypto is like the best way to solidify all that and like
Yeah.
bring it on and actually attach tangible value. I remember when I used to play, like I used to accumulate a lot of like coins in RuneScape and try to sell that online for like actual cash,
No, yeah,
and
I remember the Diablo 2 or Diablo 3 like auction house stuff. My buddy sold something he like found for like $400 and we were like, "Oh my god, that's crazy, dude. Like what the fuck?"
and all these random ass accounts selling for like tens of thousands of dollars because they have 99 everything. Okay.
Oh
I
yeah.
get it. I feel you. Okay. So when did you kind of buy your first NFT?
Um
And do you remember what it was? So like two questions.
so it's a bit of a there's kind of like two answers. I'm pretty sure I like bought a couple crypto kitties back in 2017, 2018 when that was all happening. Um, I don't know what those wallets were or anything. That was like it was like right when I was getting into all of this, and I was like, this is really stupid. And I like just bought a couple. Um, so I don't really count those to be honest, because
Okay.
I generally discredited NFTs at that point and like thought it was dumb. I just didn't really get it. Uh, then probably I don't remember the first, to be honest. It was
It wasn't that important. It was like
no, it was
whatever.
like
Yeah.
probably sometime during DeFi summer stuff. So it was like
Okay.
summer of last year. So not
Okay.
that long ago. I'm
Yeah.
not like some crazy NFT OG who was buying stuff before OpenSea existed, level NFT collector by any means.
Got it. Got it. So how did that lead to fractional? Like how did you go from like getting into crypto, working on projects, going to MakerDAO, starting like what is that? What is the narrative behind that story?
Yeah, so I think like for me with NFTs in particular, what really unlocked a lot for me was NBA Top Shot, just because like I was saying earlier, I'm a huge basketball fan, and just like doing that and buying stuff because it was actually just fun for me as opposed to being like, oh, this is going to make me the most money,
Hmm.
was a very eye-opening experience for me. Because I hadn't really thought about NFTs that way, or I like understood the idea that that could be a thing, but I hadn't had a moment where it was for me, and so it was harder to wrap my head around. Um, and so that was really very helpful in kind of understanding the value prop of NFTs. And I had like, you know, prior to being super into crypto, I was writing bots to like buy and flip Supreme and Kith and all this stuff and collecting sneakers. I have
Mm.
way more pairs of sneakers than I can fit in my small New York City apartment in my closet. So like they're like the value proposition of digital scarcity and collectibles and all that kind of stuff like was not new to me. I just hadn't really totally registered it in the
Hmm.
digital world as opposed to the physical. And also like I'm not a finance guy. I don't, to be honest, like DeFi is cool. I like DeFi. It's DeFi's made me a lot of money, but like I don't really, I'm not super compelled to like design the next most efficient bonding
Right.
curve for token swaps or something. Like
Right.
that stuff to me, that's not what I studied in school. It's not what I'm passionate about. Um, I love, you know, collectibles and gaming and sports, and like that just all kind of leans towards NFTs more. And then fractional in particular from there, uh, it was just a lot of the conversations I was having with people who were coming from like the daily fantasy sports world and stuff, primarily in Top Shop, but then also getting into CryptoPunks and all this, who were like group buying stuff. And I was like, this should really just be like being able to buy things online with your friends should be more than just like wiring your one friend a bunch of money or Venmoing your friend and him buying something. There should definitely be like a more elegant way to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and then you just kind of like take it a step further and you're like, okay, sure, people want to buy stuff with their friends, but then like also people just want to own pieces of things that are exciting and interesting. Like it's way more exciting to own 1% of an alien CryptoPunk than it is to own some random garbage NFT that can buy on OpenSea.
Yeah.
And like just trying to figure out the right way to unlock that for people and make that accessible is really exciting to me. Um, as someone like,
By the way, I came across that realization personally when you guys had that big PR event with the Zombie of the Living Dead,
yeah,
right? A lot of
that was
people kind
fun.
of came across fractional through that drop, and I was like, "Fuck, I'm too broke to afford a CryptoPunk, but shit, this one's sick. Like,
Yeah.
I'll buy a piece of this one. You know, like this one's pretty cool."
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that one of the things now that we're really having to figure out and deal with is like that next step from, oh, I want to buy this thing, that's cool, to like really being able to show and display that you fractionally own something, and really like continuing to press into the ownership and collecting side of all of it. Something that we're like spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's best there and what's right, because there's a lot of like what we've noticed is there's a ton of interest at the time of fractionalization. When there's a cool new thing that's fractionalized, everyone's like, oh, this is sick.
Hmm.
But then like sometimes that interest dies out over time comparatively to other like full NFTs. And maybe that's just like a part of that is just like kind of part of NFTs, and people are going to buy stuff not for the right reasons, and then sell it because they're no longer interested. But it's definitely an interesting challenge to try to like work with.
Got it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about fractional, but I want to backtrack for a minute. For those who don't know what fractional is, okay, how do you explain it to normies? Like, what does that narrative look like for you?
Yeah. So I guess like the really, really basic version is fractional is a way to buy a piece of an NFT. That's like the super normie, I don't understand anything about
Yeah.
crypto version of this. Um, the slightly less normie version is fractional, is a decentralized protocol where users are able to trustlessly buy and sell fractions of NFTs or
Hmm.
fractionalize their own NFTs. Uh, then the really more complicated version is it's a decentralized permissionless protocol where You can buy, sell, or mint fractions of things and create like any type of, you know, other applications on top of that, like a party bid or all these different things. It really tries to be very low level and unopinionated so that you can do whatever you want. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like super important to us to encourage that, people are empowered to develop and build whatever they want on top, while being able to plug into like a very trusted, decentralized framework for fractionalization.
Yeah, solid. I like how you approached it from the three tiers. It reminds me of like the IBM video that came out, like what is blockchain? Uh, when they're trying to explain it to a kid, then like a PhD professor, like
Yeah.
stellar. I guess my next question to you, and we talked a little bit about this, like the feeling of owning a part of something bigger, but why in general beyond art? Why is fractionalization and co-ownership so important?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that like is really interesting is just like how much Fractional has kind of turned into like a social media app in a way. It wasn't something I completely expected, but it definitely is happening. Where it's like one of the biggest use cases for all this is just to own something online with your friends, and I've almost been calling it like subreddits for NFTs,
Mm,
where everyone who fractionally owns a thing together, they have this like sent thing that drives them all together, which is fractional ownership of an NFT in the same way as like a subreddit. Maybe it's MMA or whatever. Uh, and it's not like this crazy intense social graph of people that have tons of responsibilities and they're driving forward the value of MMA, but like they all like it and they all want to go and kind of talk about it sometimes and talk about it with their friends and post stuff on the subreddit. And I kind of think about fractional ownership in the same way, where we're like empowering people to own something with their friends and with strangers online, and hopefully have as much or as little interaction with them as they desire. Um, and that's like, it's really powerful. And the community that you can build around that stuff is really additive to the NFTs themselves. Um,
hmm.
and it also just is, it's like, it creates a significantly more open world for NFTs that's inviting to new people. Like I saw someone tweeting, they asked like, what's the, what are the best NFTs for like a Christmas present that are under $50? And like, it's really hard to find NFTs that people think are really cool and also are under $50, because it's kind of like the nature of how things are right now. There's just
Mm-hmm.
not enough of a market for that price point of NFT. But like Fractional can come in and fill that very nicely.
So are
Um,
you getting into the gift giving world of things, which I could honestly see like somebody building an application layer on top of that, right? Using your protocol could be super sick.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that I would love to see happen. It's not something that we're going to explicitly
Yeah,
like
for
build
sure.
anytime soon. But those are the types of things that Fractional unlocks that I get really excited about, where it's like, how do we create the appropriate infrastructure for people to have a really great way to gift an NFT to their dad for Christmas that like is actually cool and exciting, and like, you know, is a fun thing to own, as opposed to
Yeah.
just, whatever random thing they're able to find. Or I don't know. I think that stuff is really exciting.
Yeah. What's up, guys? Adam Levy here. Sorry for the quick pause, but I wanted to give some love to our 3 NFT sponsors that are making this episode a reality. They are Coinvise, POAP, and Social Stack. On Coinvise, you can create a personal or community-owned social token on Ethereum. Coinvise also helps you create incentives through token rewards and bounties, NFT business models, and bot integrations for Discord. Discover more by visiting coinvise.co today. Next up, we have POAP, or short for Proof of Attendance Protocol, who enables a novel way of creating one's life diary. Leveraging NFT technology, POAP facilitates an easy way to mint non-fungible tokens related to meaningful events. It's frequently used in crypto-native communities, and now it's starting to create NFT collectors in the mainstream too. Collect or launch your own POAP today by visiting poap.xyz. Next up, we have Social Stack, a platform for communities, brands, and creators to build mission-driven social token economies. Offering an easy-to-use, non-custodial wallet with a suite of open-source community engagement tools, Social Stack makes it simple to bring your community into Web3 and be a part of creating an open-source, gratitude-driven future for social tokens. Create a free social token wallet, discover mission-driven social token communities, or apply to launch your own token on SocialStack by visiting socialstack.co today. All right, back to the episode. You know, one thing that I really admire as to how you guys went to market is all or not necessarily went to market, but like how you guys think about marketing and like driving traffic and users to Fractional is this DAO called Pleaser DAO, okay? And a lot of like the big dick energy that you guys kind of put out there is buying these really, really dope pieces and then attempting to fractionalize them. The most like common one is like the Doge piece that kind of went live that hit shelves across Bloomberg everywhere. Like everybody was talking about it across Twitter. It had an incredible success, I'd think, about normies coming to the space, understanding what fractionalized NFTs were, experiencing maybe even some of their first tokens, et cetera, et cetera. But I love this whole concept that you guys are kind of like exploring publicly. It's like building this really powerful protocol, adding a layer that has like a consumer element, but then attaching this like collector DAO to it that kind of like practices what they preach, right? And buying these pieces and then using the platform and the protocol to kind of put it into action, which creates a whole nother layer of like social and awareness of bringing a product to life, which I thought was like super, super interesting. Was that planned? This type of strategy, did that happen accidentally? Like, walk me through that. And maybe I'm like talking out of my ass too, like, but I it's something that I noticed kind of was super cool about you guys.
Yeah, honestly, like, so as much as it may seem like it, like there's essentially zero connection between Pleaser DAO and Fractional, other than that I am in Pleaser DAO. But it all just like happened very randomly. I started Fractional in February. Pleaser DAO started in April. I don't remember. And it just kind of like was very clear inside of Pleaser DAO that what people wanted to have happen there was fractionalization and buying things and, you know, redistributing them to the larger community and the people who were able to make those things happen and who those items are important to. And like, it was just really funny and fortunate timing that like I was also working on Fractional, and then those two things like aligned so nicely. And I'm also like very thankful that the people in Pleaser DAO are supportive of Fractional and like excited and happy to use it. And like, obviously I'm biased inside of Pleaser DAO and that I like using Fractional. But I am but a small vote in the larger DAO of people. I think that's one of the things that we really focused on with Fractional was wanting to make, like I was saying, wanting to make sure we're unopinionated so you can kind of really do whatever you want. And I think that was really compelling for Pleaser DAO in fractionalizing the Doge NFT. As Pleaser DAO goes forward and does other things, you know, there's like no commitment from the DAO by any means to like use Fractional for everything. And like, I wouldn't want them to do that either. I think like, to me, it's just a fun group of people that I'm collecting stuff with, where when like the situation is right, Pleaser DAO will hopefully use Fractional for the right things. To be honest, for me, like a lot of that just feels like super fortunate. It just kind of all fell into place where, you know, a bunch of friends all bought some stuff and I happened to be one of them, and we decided to fractionalize it. I wish I could say that it was like some master plan that I had, but it really wasn't.
But like think about it. Like, you know, a lot of products and protocols are launching daily, okay, in crypto. And if you like look at it, you zoom out for a minute and you're like looking at it from above and you're like, wow, that's actually a really cool way to bring something to life. It's like design the protocol for it and then build a use case around it, and like have this crazy PR event. And I don't know, I thought it was like a super, super cool like angle to bootstrap users and to kind of create awareness.
Thank you.
Was really interesting.
I think, you know, really where for me, like the strategy part of that for Fractional comes in is more just like, we've been really, really intentional about building good relationships with collectors and creators and different people, to where when they come to a point where they say, hey, maybe we want to fractionalize something, hopefully they think of Fractional and they want to use Fractional. And that's been extremely intentional. And so far, I think we've done a decent job at that. We can always do better, but I'm pretty happy with how that's gone. And so I think that that's where the more intentional side was Pleaser DAO in and of itself just happened to be one of the things that spun up. But like, fortunately, I already had a lot of relationships with people there and friendships, and there was a trust in what we've built to put something that was worth so much onto Fractional. But I totally agree. I think that we're going to see more and more companies and protocols basically build their protocol and then prove the usefulness through applications, even like mobile apps with all these different things. Like you can see it with Compound as well, where they have like
Hmm.
the Compound treasury now, where like Compound made Compound protocol, and now they have like a significantly different app that's utilizing Compound treasury or utilizing Compound protocol called Compound treasury, where they're like working with larger institutions to get them better yield through
Yeah, yeah,
USDC. And so I think we're going to continue to see those kind of things spin up more and more, and it just makes sense.
yeah. And just adding a little bit more to it. Okay, coming out with fractional. Okay, other projects kind of like brought more awareness to the platform. There's this iconic Doge event of Pleaser DAO buying the initial Doge piece, then going to fractional and fractionalizing it and kind of bootstrapping a lot of liquidity and boosting the value of the underlying asset, and then going to NFT NYC and seeing all the dogs everywhere or the Doges everywhere, right? And adding more character, more culture to the drop itself, and how this like piece of technology enabled that, right? Enabled that level of movement, that level of culture, that level of togetherness, unity. I thought it was super, super cool. One thing I wanted to talk to you also about is like you brought up this concept of creators using fractional, and if they want to fractionalize something, they think of you guys. What has been the response so far of creators seeing their pieces of art being like deconstructed to bits and pieces and co-owned by many, many people? What has been like the sentiment around that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's been different based on who you talk to. Not surprisingly, but some some creators are super excited about it. They're like, "This is awesome." Uh, Basically, love that I can reach a broader collector base and all this other stuff. I think other creators kind of enjoy the exclusivity of their work,
Hmm.
and like rightfully so. That sometimes is a very powerful part of what they're doing. And so maybe they're not as big a fan. Haven't really had anyone be like, "Hey, don't like this, take my NFT down," or something. That has not been a conversation we've had, fortunately. Um, but it's definitely been a spectrum. I would say for the most part, people are super excited about it. Uh, it's you know, it's generally pretty compelling to without having to dilute your you know exclusivity or anything. Just have a fractional piece that the smaller non-whale people can come in and collect and be a part of the community and all of that.
Sure.
And so that's I think been the most positive response has been around the ability for them to bring in a ton more collectors to their art who otherwise would have been priced out of it.
Okay, I had what's his name, Tyler Hobbs, on Mint a few episodes, actually in the same season. Okay, I think it was like episode 1 or 2, and we talked about like how he feels about seeing his art on Fractional, and what's
Mhm.
really intended to be owned by one person is now being co-owned by many people. And he had an interesting point. He's like, "Well, my art is meant to be enjoyed by the masses, right? Define enjoyment. Enjoyment can
Mhm.
come in different shapes and forms, right? If people define their level of enjoyment by owning something, right, then who am I to say that that should be owned by one person, right? Maybe that should be owned by multiple people. And I thought it was like an interesting approach, but I could also see it kind of backfiring of like fine artists really building and designing and creating for one collector, right? That's like their strategy. And then that collector goes on fractional and like democratizes it. It's like everybody can have it now and
Yeah.
enjoy the perks of the piece of art. So I thought that was a super interesting insight. And from what I'm understanding, that has kind of been the sentiment as well from what you're seeing, give or take.
Yeah, yeah. I would say generally, and obviously, every single instance of it is different, but for the most part, it's been a pretty good response from creators who have been excited to have this be a new tool that
Hmm.
they can use.
Yeah. Have you seen any like unique use cases of creators using fractional in like a different light than you would have imagined initially? Anything come to mind?
I've seen some interesting stuff around like 10,000 PFP projects with like different things that they've done with fractional. Like there's like the Punks comic stuff and different things like that. As far as more like specifically a creator who's doing more traditional art, whether it's photography and stuff, probably one of my favorites has been the Photo Vault, which
Mm,
is it's there's now two different photo vaults on fractional, but they're collections of different photography artists NFTs, and the vault has now actually like licensed the artwork that's inside of them to Time Magazine, which is really cool. I have no idea
Oh,
what that means, to be honest with you. I don't, was not privy to the whatever the legal conversations were around licensing a fractional vault of NFTs. It was one of those things where like I found out the announcement because like Time or Photo Vault had announced it. I had no
sure,
idea, which to
sure.
me is like a huge win. Like if stuff like that is happening on Fractional and we don't even know about it, that's like the ultimate pro. It means people are doing really cool shit that we didn't even think of or didn't plan, and like that's exactly what you want. So it was a good thing to have. But one day we just like saw the tweet in our Slack, and I was like, oh, I had no clue. Um, I think that one's been really really cool, and I just love in general when people there's been somewhat of a push by different people to use fractional and the fractionalization and these vaults um, to support different types of artists or different groups of artists. I know there's been someone in some of our Twitter spaces lately talking about wanting to create vaults of NFTs around women artists and like buying more women's artwork with those, like with the proceeds of selling the fractions and all of that. I think there's just really cool stuff that can be done where you're like kind of creating access for like a ton of people to be able to
Hmm.
support different groups of people and stuff. Um, I haven't seen a ton of explicit use cases of it yet, but I've been hearing a lot of conversations about it, and I'm excited to see where that all kind of goes.
Yeah, I'm also super excited. Part of Mint is basically showcasing ways either founders are building for creators, either directly, indirectly. And when I had Tyler Hobbs on and he kind of brought up that situation, that use case, it's like, oh, this is actually a pretty cool way for more creators to kind of explore what asset ownership, what art ownership means to them and their collectors, and what that can kind of do from there on out. So, yeah, super super interesting. One thing that I'm super excited about, and that I'm seeing a lot of other people get excited about, is uh, uh, photography NFTs.
Yeah.
Are you collecting some of yourself?
I I don't have a ton, if I'm being
Okay,
totally honest. I have one drifter shoots where my Vans go, which is sick. Those are
sick.
definitely my favorite. I love those. I I need to spend more time really getting into it. To be totally honest, I don't have nearly as much time now to be like deep in the weeds on Foundation and Zora and
Yeah,
OpenSea, finding
yeah.
like the next thing. And so a lot of the time I'm like just DMing D's in Slack, and I'm like, hey man, what's hot? Tell me what should I be looking at? Uh, but yeah, so right now I had some of the fractionalized uh, raw DAO NFT prior to it being bought out the first time. The Twin Flames.
Hmm.
I had some of that. And now, yeah, right now my main NFT, like main photography NFT I have is one of the drifter shoots. But I'm in the market. I need to do some more research. One day I'll have some free time. Maybe over the Christmas holidays I'll
There
have a
you
little
go.
free time.
There you go. How do you imagine people kind of using fractionalized assets to bootstrap community? I know we talked a little bit about this with the Doge drop, but how does it go from there? Is this something you guys are thinking about internally? Because I know you guys do have
Yeah,
a big community arm with these kind of leading a lot of the narratives and the voice around fractional next to you. How do you think about that?
yeah, it's something that we're still trying to figure out internally. In a lot of ways, to be honest, is like, does fractional should fractional be providing like the infrastructure for people to have larger community discussions on our website or on another website? Should there be like forums for different fractional NFTs? Should we be allowing people to plug in full governance to fractional NFTs where you can, really bootstrap a DAO and do all this other stuff? And like the answer right now is still kind of we're not totally sure. Uh, we've been spending a lot of time. I'm really excited. We just brought in like a someone to lead product for us who spent a lot of time doing a lot of user research and different things like that at his previous job. Really excited to start doing a little bit more like surveys and just like talking to
Hmm.
people and figuring out exactly what it is when people talk about building a community or bootstrapping a community around a fractional NFT. Like, what does that actually mean? What is it that you really want to be doing there? Because there's a million different ways that could go. And so I think the like short answer is yes, definitely Fractional wants to be supporting and empowering people to build communities on top of fractionalized NFTs. But the long answer is like yes, but we haven't quite figured out what that means or how we're going to do it yet. And so we're still kind of in the exploratory phase of how much do we need to be supporting people as far as like the technical chops of creating a community.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting to kind of see how that folds. I'm looking on the website right now, and there's so many different, there's like pillar assets that get kind of diverged into smaller pieces of assets that within themselves each have their own respective communities, right? And a lot of what fractionalization does gives like democratizes access, to something that
Yeah,
otherwise couldn't have been accessible. And that within itself is like the big ethos of community, I feel like, right? So there's definitely a twist in a play, and it's interesting to hear kind of like you're seeing more of a social side appear through the
yeah.
fractionalization of art. Is it only on Ethereum right now?
For now, yes. Uh,
Are there plans? Is this like, can we do some alpha leaks right now? Are there plans to
I
kind of
won't I won't leak anything too hard. I will say Fractional plans to be anywhere that there are valuable NFTs.
solid?
If yeah, I'll leave it at that. But so we are actively working on that. I think the biggest challenge for us there, we take our UI really really seriously. I like not to toot our own horn. I think maybe it's not like as edgy as some crypto UIs are and stuff. It feels a little bit more Web 2, but I do think it's really clean and it works nicely and it is intuitive.
Dude,
And we
I
want to
think
make
that's
sure,
why. I think that's why it's so like powerful because it's not curve finance,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And we like really try to take that seriously and want to make sure that our users, because we have a lot of users who are relatively new to crypto, and like we want to be a place where users who are new to crypto can come and
Yeah,
buy stuff and just like kind of start to test the waters. And so when we do have multi-chain support, we want to make sure that's a really good experience. I can't say that a lot of websites do have like great experiences when
yeah,
it comes to
sure.
multi-chain, and I don't really blame them. It's really really hard. Um, so we just want to make sure we take the time to make sure we get it right. Uh, but it'll come.
Awesome. I think that's a perfect place to end off. Short and sweet. Andy, you're a rock star, bro. Thank you for being on. Where can we find you? Where can we find Fractional? Give us the hot take.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun. The best place to find me is gonna be on Twitter. My handle is Andy8052. It's my handle basically everywhere. Uh, Fractional's Twitter handle is fractional_art, and our domain is fractional.art. Um, but yeah, Twitter is the main place you'll find us. Otherwise, we have a Discord that you can find links to on our website. Um, yeah, thanks again for having me. This was really
Cool,
fun.
man. Thank you.